A farmer in Appalachia filmed a silent disc hovering over his land. Seconds later, two more appeared. One came straight for him. The footage cuts out. No one knows what happened next. And the authorities? They haven't said a word. This isn't the first time something unexplained has appeared over these mountains. Appalachia has been one of the most active UFO regions in America for over 50 years. And the pattern is always the same. People see something. They report it through official channels, and the people responsible for answering stay silent. The footage exists. The witnesses exist. The authorities have said nothing.
The whole crew saw a whole bunch of silver darting objects. And not only did this happen once, it happened over and over.
Passenger named Michelle Reyes joined me exclusively to share a clip of video that she took from her window seat.
She said that she had noticed it when she was in the air too, so I wasn't the only one who saw it.
Bruh.
Look, there's something flying through the air. Oh shit!
On le voit!
It must be about 3,000 feet up now, I'd say.
The disc over the foothills. It started with the livestock. A farmer living near the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains had been losing animals for days. Not one or two. Multiple livestock, gone without explanation. No blood trails anywhere on the property. No tracks. No signs of predators. No holes in the fencing. The animals were simply gone. One morning, they were there. The next morning, they weren't. And nothing on the land explained why. Determined to find answers, the farmer stayed up past dawn, watching over his land with a camera ready. He expected to catch a thief, maybe a coyote or a mountain lion dragging carcasses into the brush. What he captured on video was something no one in that community was prepared for. From the distant foothills, a craft emerged, smooth, silent, perfectly controlled. It wasn't drifting or tumbling through the air the way a balloon or debris would. It was moving with purpose, gliding above the tree line like it knew exactly where it was going. The shape was unmistakable. A disc. Metallic, with steady amber lights along its underside. The kind of object people describe in science fiction, except this one was real, and it was hovering above a working farm in the Appalachian foothills in broad daylight. The farmer held his camera steady as the object stopped above his property. It hung there, motionless, as if surveying the land below. No sound, no exhaust, no visible propulsion of any kind. Just a solid craft suspended in the air, watching. Then, without warning, it vanished. No burst of speed, no trail, no fading. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The farmer barely had time to process what he'd seen before the situation got worse. Seconds later, two more objects appeared in the same airspace, same disc shape, same silent movement. But this time, the encounter felt different, more deliberate. One of the discs began moving directly toward the farmer's position. You can hear it in the footage. His breathing gets heavier. The camera starts shaking. He's no longer just watching something in the distance. He's being approached. He's being observed. And then the recording stops. No one knows what happened in the minutes after the footage ends. The farmer has not spoken publicly about what followed. Local residents in the area have expressed serious concern, especially given the earlier pattern of livestock vanishing without explanation. The question some of them are now asking out loud is one nobody wants to answer. If animals are disappearing without a trace, could people be next? But the most unsettling part of this story isn't the footage itself. It's what came after. Or rather, what didn't. No statement from local law enforcement. No explanation from the FAA. No acknowledgement from any government agency that the incident was even being reviewed. The footage exists. Multiple residents in the area corroborate unusual activity over the same stretch of foothills. And the official response has been absolute silence. That silence would be easier to accept if this were an isolated event. but the Appalachian Mountains have quietly become one of the most active UFO hotspots in the United States. Data released in February 2026 shows that West Virginia now has one close encounter reported for every 6,800 residents. In Virginia, 1 in every 104 people has seen something in the sky they cannot explain. Pennsylvania alone logged over 100 sightings in a single reporting period, and the reports are consistent. Glowing orbs, silent triangular craft, disc-shaped objects that hover, perform impossible maneuvers, and vanish without a trace. Witnesses separated by years and hundreds of miles are describing the same things. What the farmer filmed wasn't the first time a disc appeared over these foothills. It isn't even the worst thing this region has produced. For that, you have to go back to October 1973. The 1973 Wave. In October 1973, the Appalachian region became the center of the most intense UFO wave ever recorded on American soil. It didn't start with a single sighting. It started with dozens, then hundreds, flooding in across Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and the surrounding states. Local newspapers were overwhelmed with calls from frightened residents. Police dispatch lines stayed busy through the night. And by mid-month, even military personnel were reporting things they couldn't explain. On October 10th, law enforcement officers in Ohio responded to reports of unidentified craft flying at treetop level across a rural stretch of the county. What they found when they arrived was not subtle. An oblong object covered in red, green, and blue lights hovered silently above the trees. It made no sound. It produced no exhaust. It simply hung in the air, motionless, as if the laws of physics didn't apply to it. When one officer aimed his spotlight directly at the craft, it reacted. It shot straight upward at a speed none of them could rationalize and disappeared into the night sky in seconds. The sighting lasted several minutes. Multiple officers watched the entire thing. This was not a brief flash across a windshield or a passing light in the distance. This was sustained, visible, and witnessed by trained law enforcement professionals. And it was just the beginning of what October 1973 had in store for Appalachia. That same night, a U.S. Army Reserve captain named Lawrence Coyne was flying a UH-1 Huey helicopter over Ohio with his 4-man crew when something approached them from the east. It moved fast. Too fast. Coyne radioed Mansfield Tower for an ID on the aircraft. The tower didn't answer. Their radio had died the moment the object closed in. What Captain Coyne and his crew described next is one of the most thoroughly documented military UFO encounters in American history. A cigar-shaped, gray metallic craft stopped directly above their helicopter. A green beam swept across the cockpit. The magnetic compass spun uncontrollably. And despite Coyne having the controls set to descend, the altimeter showed the helicopter climbing, hundreds of feet, against the controls. When the object finally moved off to the west, it vanished at a speed no known aircraft could match. Coyne filed an official report. His crew, Sergeant John Healy, Sergeant Robert Yanisek, and Lieutenant Arrigo Jezzi, all confirmed what they saw. 4 trained military personnel, 1 encounter, and no acceptable explanation from any agency, then or now. Throughout the rest of that month, the reports followed a pattern that went well beyond simple sightings. Vehicles stalled near encounter locations for no mechanical reason, their engines dying and their electrical systems flickering out the moment a craft appeared overhead. When the object moved on, the vehicles started again as if nothing had happened. Glowing craft were seen descending into open fields across rural counties, hovering just feet above the ground before rising and disappearing. Witnesses across the region described objects that seemed aware of being watched. They would pull away when people stared at them directly, then drift closer when attention turned elsewhere, as if testing how much they could observe before being noticed. The behavior wasn't random. It was deliberate. Some witnesses reported abduction-like experiences, periods of missing time they couldn't account for, strange sensations on their skin, and buzzing sounds that came from every direction at once. Others simply reported reaching out to local authorities and hearing nothing back. By the end of October, the scope of what had happened was undeniable. Hundreds of witnesses across multiple states over a span of weeks had independently described the same types of objects behaving in the same impossible ways. This was not scattered paranoia. It was a concentrated, sustained surge of unexplained activity across one of the most remote regions of the eastern United States. Decades later, the 1973 wave remains one of the most heavily documented periods of UFO activity in modern history, and it remains entirely unexplained. No official investigation produced answers. No agency took public responsibility. The witnesses were left to carry what they saw without a single word from the institutions that should have been paying attention. And as unsettling as 1973 was, it wasn't the first time something like this had descended on Appalachia. 7 years earlier, in a small West Virginia town, the encounters didn't stay in the sky. They had a body. And they had eyes. The Mothman. On November 15, 1966, two young couples in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, drove out to an abandoned munitions site known locally as the TNT area. What they encountered that night would ignite 13 months of terror across the Appalachian region. Standing near the edge of the site was a figure. Not an aircraft, not a light in the sky. A figure. Roughly 6 to 7 feet tall, with a wingspan nearing 10 feet, and two large, glowing red eyes that reflected the headlights of their car. The couples didn't stop to study it. They ran for their vehicle and drove. But the creature followed. According to their police report, it lifted off the ground and chased their car down the road, keeping pace as they accelerated in a panic. Witnesses described it gliding through the air without flapping its wings, moving in a way that no known bird, drone, or aircraft could replicate. They weren't the first to see it. Just days earlier, in nearby Clendenin, 5 gravediggers had reported seeing a dark, humanoid figure lift off from the trees and fly directly over their heads. It was one of the first recorded appearances of what the press would soon call the Mothman. Within weeks, reports flooded in from across the region. Resident after resident described the same thing, a towering winged creature with glowing red eyes. Some saw it perched silently in the branches of trees along dark rural roads, its red eyes the only visible feature in the blackness. Others reported it hovering near highways or chasing vehicles at high speed, matching cars doing 60 and 70 miles per hour without any apparent effort. Volunteer firemen near the TNT area reported a large creature with red eyes watching them from a low altitude. Police logged dozens of calls from witnesses across multiple counties, many of whom had no connection to one another, lived miles apart, and had no reason to fabricate the same impossible story. The descriptions were remarkably consistent. A dark figure, 6 to 7 feet tall, a wingspan close to 10 feet, no visible face aside from those enormous red eyes, and a way of moving through the air that defied explanation, gliding silently without a single wing stroke, as if gravity simply didn't apply. But the creature wasn't the only strange thing appearing in Point Pleasant during those 13 months. Residents also reported glowing lights moving silently across the sky, bizarre buzzing sounds at night, electronics malfunctioning without explanation, and animals disappearing from farms. The overlap between the Mothman sightings and classic UFO activity was impossible to ignore. Whatever was happening in this corner of Appalachia, it wasn't limited to a single kind of encounter. The sky and the ground were both producing anomalies at the same time, in the same place. Between late 1966 and December 1967, possibly over 100 people reported sightings across the region. It became one of the largest concentrated waves of unexplained phenomena in Appalachian history. Point Pleasant was gripped by something it couldn't understand, something that appeared without warning, that showed up night after night in different locations, that seemed to watch the people watching it, and that no authority could identify, explain, or make stop. Then it ended in the worst way imaginable. On December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge, a suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during evening rush hour traffic. The bridge gave way without warning. Cars plunged into the icy Ohio River. 46 people were killed. It was one of the worst bridge disasters in American history, and it happened in the exact town where over 100 people had been reporting something impossible in the sky for 13 straight months. The Mothman sightings stopped immediately, not gradually, not over weeks. The day the bridge fell, the encounters ended. Many locals drew a connection they could never prove, but could never let go of either. 13 months of escalating, unexplained activity, all of it concentrated in one small Appalachian town, ending abruptly the exact day disaster struck. Whether the sightings were a warning, a coincidence, or something else entirely, the timing was impossible to dismiss. To this day, no official explanation has been offered for what over 100 people saw in the skies and forests around Point Pleasant. No federal agency investigated the sightings. No formal report was ever issued. The people of that community were left with their memories, their grief, and nothing but silence from the institutions that should have had answers. And that silence is the thread that connects every encounter in this story. Why they won't talk. The silence around the Appalachian farmer isn't new. It's the way things have always been done in these mountains. The cover-up isn't recent policy. It goes back generations. On the evening of December 9th, 1965, a bright object streaked across the sky over multiple U.S. states and reportedly came down in the woods outside Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Witnesses described a fireball arcing through the atmosphere before slowing, changing course, and descending into the forest. Locals rushed to the scene. Several of them reported seeing a metallic, acorn-shaped object the size of a Volkswagen, with strange markings along its base, resting in the trees. Within hours, the United States military arrived. They cordoned off the area. They warned residents away. Witnesses later reported seeing a large flatbed truck leaving the scene with an object covered by a tarpaulin. The military's official statement was that nothing was found. Nothing at all. That was the official answer. An object fell out of the sky over the Appalachian foothills. Dozens of residents watched it happen. The military mobilized in response, and Washington said there had never been anything to investigate. Kecksburg has been called the Pennsylvania Roswell ever since. 60 years later, the files remain sealed. But even that isn't the earliest Appalachian case the government refused to explain. For that, you have to go back to 1952. On the night of September 12th, 1952, a group of boys in Flatwoods, West Virginia, saw something bright crash into a hillside near their home. A local woman named Kathleen May led them up the hill to investigate. What they found there has been debated for over 70 years. The witnesses described a creature roughly 10 feet tall, with a spade-shaped head, glowing red eyes, and a body that seemed to float rather than walk. A thick, sour-smelling mist rolled off the figure, and within minutes the witnesses began experiencing nausea, burning throats, and vomiting. They fled down the hill and reported what they saw to the sheriff, who brought in the Air Force. The Air Force's official conclusion? A meteor, and possibly a misidentified owl. Kathleen May and the boys had reported the same physical symptoms. Multiple local residents had seen the crash, and the official response was that they had imagined it. This is the pattern. It hasn't changed since 1952. Something happens in Appalachia. Witnesses report it. A uniformed authority shows up, collects what they find, and leaves. And the public is told that nothing unusual occurred. It's still happening right now. In late 2024, a wave of mysterious aerial objects was reported across the entire eastern United States, including heavy concentrations over Appalachian states. Thousands of people reported unknown craft moving in coordinated formations at night. Some of the sightings occurred directly above military installations, which triggered federal investigations and congressional briefings. Over a year later, the public has received almost no answers. This is the thread that ties every encounter in this video together. The farmer in the foothills, Coyne and his helicopter crew in 1973, the families in Point Pleasant, the witnesses at Kecksburg, Kathleen May on that hillside in Flatwoods. Every one of them saw something real. Every one of them reported it through the proper channels. And every one of them was met with the same response. Nothing. One stretch of mountains running from West Virginia through Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, and into the Carolinas has been producing overlapping, eerily similar reports for over 70 years. Glowing orbs over the ridgelines, silent triangular craft above rural highways, disc-shaped objects that hover and vanish, entities that shouldn't exist, missing livestock, and a government response that has not changed in generations. Appalachia keeps producing sightings. The numbers keep climbing. The reports keep coming from people with no motive to lie and nothing to gain from the attention. And the agencies tasked with investigating, the FAA, the military, local, and federal law enforcement, continue to do what they have always done. Stay silent. Something has been watching Appalachia for decades. And the only thing more unsettling than what's in the footage is the silence that always follows. What do you think is really happening over these mountains? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.